Thank you everyone for coming. Thank you for your commitment as well, because I know it's the last day of PAX and it's a big weekend. I hope you've had an absolutely incredible time and it's a pleasure to be here with you all at the end of another amazing PAX. We're hosting a panel all about animals. I imagine pretty much everyone here likes animals, otherwise it's probably a bit of a strange place to be. Who here has a pet? Yeah, it's like most people. Who here works in like maybe an animal industry? Yeah, we've got a few of us. I used to be a veterinarian, so I think I'm probably the most overqualified host for this panel. But very keen. We're going to be talking about 4 incredible games, each of which have an animal protagonist, different species, different benefits, different challenges, and also just finding a bit more about what went into the design of the game and how that is influenced by the fact that each of our panelists has chosen an animal as a protagonist. And you might actually know each of their games as well. They have made an appearance at previous PAXs, and you might have even played them because some of them have released recently and some of them are still in development, and you should play them in the future. So we're going to meet our panelists now, these 4 fine folk. First up, closest to me, we have Rick. Rick Salter is the director at Hojo Studio. Can I get a round of applause for Rick? And Rick has made a game about probably the most underappreciated animal of all. I'm going to say yes, pigeons! Pigeons, they're amazing. They're everywhere. And they're so cute, and they're often overlooked as well. And Rick's going to tell us all about his pigeon game, which is the Godfeather, a mafia pigeon saga. And I actually managed to find out something about Rick. He's actually a pigeon himself. Yeah, in a human costume, so give it up for Rick. Next up we have Sam. Sam is one of 2 developers on the wonderful Copycat, which launched last month. Can I please get a round of applause? Who's played Copycat? Yes, very good. I hope to see some more hands in the air next year at our next animal panel, which is totally happening. And also, fun fact about Sam, she's just a wonderful person, but has the narrative ability to make you cry like a baby.
Do it, Sam.
Right now! Next up we have Lizelle, who is probably one of the most talented artists that I've ever met. Gave a brilliant talk at an event earlier this week called Parallels, and it was wonderful, and I can't believe you've designed so many characters, so many cool monsters, and a lot of that work has gone into your game, Illyri, which is still in development, but you should totally check it out. You should wish list and follow. I played it at PAX last year and was incredibly impressed. And fun fact, Lizelle draws better than me in seconds than I could in years. And last, certainly not least, we have Ant. Ant is director at One Pixel Dog and has been working on a beautiful game called Way to the Woods. I've seen many people very excited to see more of this game. And I know it's been a long journey, but we're really keen to find out more, especially a bit about the design process, because deers in media, we've seen them before, but we certainly want to see them represented in a really cool way through your game. So we're really excited to find out more about Way to the Woods. Fun fact, Ant has not suplexed a deer and will not even attempt it. If anyone gets that reference, respect to you. Anyone get the reference? Couple of hands, very good, respect. And here's me. I'm not a panelist, I'm your host. I am kind of also a game developer as well. I was down on the Max Mustard booth all weekend. It was a lot of work, but very satisfying. So I do marketing at Toast Interactive, which is a game developer based on the Gold Coast. We make virtual reality games. I'm also editor-in-chief at qualbert.com, which is my website that I've run for 5 years. And we do a lot of indie game coverage, including we've done coverage for a few of these lovely people as well in the past. Fun fact about me, I thought it was pretty normal to go from vet to game marketer. I don't think anyone else I've ever met has done. And so now we're going to get stuck into some questions from each of our panelists. And firstly, we're just going to find out a bit more about each of them, about the game and their chosen animal. So please, if we'll starting from Rick, and we'll go down the table, tell us a bit about your game, your animal, and your story.
Okay, the microphones aren't working. That's how I'd like to start.
Hello.
Just my...
Oh, hello.
You've got okay, the game, the Godfeather it's a mafia pigeon roguelike, where you play an aspiring soldier in the pigeon underworld, and you're on a mission to take back the old neighborhood, mafia style, from all of your pigeon enemies, which are basically anybody who isn't pigeon. And as a pigeon assassin, you take your enemies out in the time-honored way by pooping on them. So that's your primary weapon. You swoop as well, and there's more to it than that, but not that much more to it. So you follow the story of your pigeon as he gets mixed up in all kinds of mafia twists and turns, and you discover in the end the dark secret that lies at the heart of the pigeon mafia. So that's the game. The animal is a pigeon, and the story, do you mean our story as developers or the story behind the game?
Go for it.
Either. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, we chose a pigeon, I suppose. The idea came to us when we were just at lunch trying to figure out what our next game was going to be. And, I mean, pigeons just clump together, as you know, all the time, and they're pretty much doing nothing. And so we just assume they have to be up to something.
I did see a really big clump of pigeons the other day. There's like 50 all like lumped
I don't know
together.
why I described it as a clump.
No, but they do. They clump.
Surely it's a flock. I don't know.
No, it's a clump.
Okay, it's a clump. From now on, it's a clump. And that's where the idea came from. And I think as soon as that idea got stuck in our heads, then the whole mafia world around them started to build, and that's sort of where all the ideas came from there.
That's awesome. That is such a weird concept that has beautifully blossomed to life.
Can I say something? It should be like a cartoon or something.
Well, I mean, if anybody wants to fund a cartoon, we'd be happy to do it, yeah.
Okay, let Disney know.
Copycat is a narrative-driven adventure game about the meaning of home, set in the Australian suburbs. Follows the story of Dawn. She's a skeptical shelter cat, and she hopes she'll find her forever home. But things take a bit of a turn when a jealous stray lookalike steals her place in the home, and she gets put out on the street. It is focusing on themes of love, loneliness, and letting go as it progresses for about 3 hours of gameplay. Our goal is to make you hug your pet afterwards and just feel, really, we take you on a bit of an emotional narrative. But ultimately, at the end of the day, we want people just to really appreciate their pets.
I told you she could make me cry.
red panda thing. And it's 2D hand-drawn platformer, level-based. There's like 30 levels, and you work with guardians to defeat bosses that are destroying the environment. And it's centered around endangered animals and rescuing them.
Yeah, it's got a great message to it.
Thank you. It's all about conservation, and all the animals you rescue in the game are endangered animals or vulnerable, so they have the conservation status in the game live. Interestingly enough, some of the animals have changed conservation status during development, so we're probably going to be updating every patch. Some have started to die.
So is this going to be a live service game?
It's almost like that as we develop it. So yeah, just about me, because I'm going to answer more about the game as we go. Did anyone here go to the Monster Mash panel? Yay! Thank you. I couldn't see you, it was really dark, but I hope one of you stole one of our drawings at the end. And thank you for coming, and thank you for coming to this one.
Hello, my name's Ant. I make Way to the Woods. That's a game, it's a third-person adventure narrative game, almost an RPG these days, where you play as these two deer in this post-apocalyptic world, and it kind of follows their journey, trying to get back home. And on that way, you get chased by wolves, you get your shit really messed up by wolves, and you gotta scavenge for food in this like abandoned city and get your little baby back home safely. It's about 2 hours long, it's very visual, it's very in the realm of those kinds of relaxing, meditative games, but it's also an RPG, so you gotta do a lot of stuff. I've been making that one for like a very long time, 6-7 years now, and trying to work with this game and what it wants to be on its own with these deer characters and these protagonists. Yeah.
Are you a solo dev?
Yeah, I'm a solo dev.
Yeah.
Soundtrack. Yeah, I've been programming and animating a lot of that on my own. The soundtrack is by Ivy and Surashuk, who do Steven Universe, if anyone likes that.
Cool.
So it's got some big hitters in there. Yeah, so I'm really looking forward to showing people that game.
We're looking forward to seeing it. Okay, this is probably the question that you get asked a fair bit when you have an animal protagonist in your game. Like, I don't know how many species of animals there are in the world. You could probably choose from tens of thousands. Why did you choose your animal? What makes you gravitate towards a pigeon or a cat or a deer or a red panda thing?
Well, in our case, we make comedy games. So I think every game Hojo's made has been a comedy game or a kind of satire. So to be honest, we had to choose the least likely animal for the kinds of setting of the game. So from our perspective, if we're going to make a game about the mafia, it makes sense that it's a pigeon mafia, because it makes no sense at all. And so, for example, in order to express the comedy, if it was a eagle, or if it was a bird of prey, or if it was a scary, dangerous bird, it wouldn't be funny. It's only funny because it's a pigeon. So yeah, I think the key was, generally speaking, the main character of our game, in order for it to be funny, can't be in on the joke. Like the pigeon thinks that it is absolutely in the mafia, right? So the more seriously the character takes itself, the funnier the game is for us. So we chose pigeons because they're so clueless and so kind of unable to ever organise in any way that pigeons trying to create organised crime was just inherently, it was irresistible.
No disrespect to pigeons though, right?
No, not at all. We love them. Over the course of making the game, we fell in love with pigeons. It started as just a silly idea, but then we just really started to love these ridiculous creatures.
So like it's actually, like your appreciation for them has grown because you've made a game about them?
Absolutely. I think so.
Nice.
Yeah.
We chose a cat because cats are awesome, first off. I grew up with a lot of cats. We went through 7 cats in 7 years. It was a lot. We had like 3 of them at once, and then we had 2 lots of pets. And those ones have stuck around for the decade, which has been wonderful. But the ability to adopt a pet and to bring it home for the very first time is so special. You do like a little dance with your animal, you desperately want it to love you, and your animal probably doesn't want you to love it straight away or as much. And so we wanted to capture that feeling of bringing a pet home for the very first time. We're also telling a story set in the home about a family drama. So the story unfolds between the cat's owner, who's a grandma, and her daughter, who's trying to take care of her. The cat was a really good symbol for the home, and it allowed us to reflect on that pet-owner relationship.
So a lot of it really was like your life experience with cats that kind of motivated you. Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's lovely.
7 cats in 7 years, from birth, from adoption to us.
No, we had 3, and then we had 2 sets of 2. And we just had a lot of cats in the house at once.
I've had over 12 cats in 3 years.
Wow.
Does that mean you're more qualified to make a cat game?
I've had 13 cats.
No!
I mean, like, I've adopted a lot of stray pregnant cats from the street because they ruin a lot of biodiversity. In the street.
Yeah.
And then we just birth them, accept them, or send them up.
Oh, that's so good.
So your story is really important because it's about the relationship between stray and domestic cats and the people that live in them. Yeah, it's cool.
Like, technically, you're both making a conservation game.
Yeah. Oh, you too?
Yes. Someone should make a game about stray cats. Yeah. That'd be really cool.
I think we skipped over your red panda because we got so involved in cats.
Yeah, see, cats are awesome. But keep them in this. What's the question? Oh, right. Because doing the conceptual design, red really stood out from the green, natural blue environments, and but I didn't want to do a fox because I felt that doing a red panda was a bit more, I guess, like, because it's endangered, I thought putting it in the spotlight would give it more eyes on its conservation status. And yeah.
Spoken like an artist as well. You're like, oh, look at that nice colour that's going to stand out gameplay-wise.
Yeah, the player has to know where your character is.
Yeah, totally.
When I first started coming up with ideas for this video game, I was playing a lot of similar games, kind of like Life is Strange and The Last of Us. A lot of those games have such strong imagery, so I would go to sleep and then have visions of deer, like Arthur Morgan style. So I couldn't get that out of my head, and I just kept seeing them in my dreams. And I think I was also watching Mononoke, so there's a lot of that in my palette. And so I kind of never, despite never seeing a deer in real life, had this mystical or magical association with them. And I thought that'd be a really fitting animal for a kind of game that I wanted to make, which was quite meditative. Yeah, I knew that I was an indie developer and I wanted to choose an animal that would fit the type of game really properly. So it was initially just like a walking simulator, so that deer really fit that, where I was like, it doesn't need to like have these crazy features. And it quickly evolved into its own thing, but yeah, definitely the serenity and the visual style that I wanted to go with was very light heavy and very naturalistic, so it all fit for me.
Yeah, awesome.
I like.
Oh, go ahead.
I just want to say I like how you have notes for the answer. It says looks cool.
Yeah, it does.
You've got away with words if you're able to turn looks cool into that. I'm looking forward to the story of the game now. Okay, and this is a big one because you've all turned your animal into a game or are in the process of turning your animal into a game. And each of which are incredibly different animals as well. Tell us a little bit about how your chosen animal actually influenced the design of your game.
Well, in our case, as soon as we realised that this was going to be an organised crime game, then we felt that a kind of, because you're flying, it's sort of a top-down early GTA, like the original GTA 1 and 2. That would be the best way to do it with pigeons, because it would be sort of death from above, right? And so from there, it built into how we're going to actually structure the gameplay. And we decided that you'd be given these kind of mini missions. They're like targets. So you have to find your target. A little pigeon HQ radios it through to you. You have to locate your target in the area and then assassinate them with poop. And then we realized to kind of maximize, to make it funny, it had to be either people who least deserve to be hit by pigeon poop and people who most deserve to be hit by pigeon poop. You can't have the thing in the middle. So you've got like a bratty kid that's running around and harassing your fellow pigeons, and so that he's got to go. But then you've got like just an innocent granny who's feeding birds, but what she's really doing is supplying your enemies, right? So we just kept envisaging, they're like little mini stories, but they're over in seconds, and then they'll be randomly placed in each map because it's a progressive, it's procedurally designed. You've got 3 different worlds of the game, and in each world the levels are procedurally built. And that's it. And we just wanted to, again, you're a pigeon, so you're not soaring high in the sky like an eagle. We didn't want it to be illustrious or anything like that. It had to be kind of zoomed in and silly, so you're constantly up in humans' business, kind of harassing them. So yeah, it's pretty much like GTA 1 in fast forward with a pigeon.
I love that. I love how just simply picking that, like, such a generic bird actually has so much impact on the design of your game. It's really cool.
Well, yeah, and also just what was really important to us is that the cluelessness of the pigeon is maintained at all costs, right? He's never able to, the pigeon is never able to be angry or upset or anything like that. He just has a kind of glazed expression. Goes about their business like a mafia assassin would. So.
And like a pigeon.
Exactly.
So the cat renaissance has arrived. We started making this game years ago, and we didn't quite know what we were doing and how the cat genre would grow over time as well. And so there's a level that we needed to meet to make a cat game. The cat had to meow, which we did record, or our cats do all the voiceover, which is really cute. The cat had to jump. It had to jump and be able to land on tables. It had to knock things over, and so there was a lot of things we had to do with that cat model just to meet that expectation the player had. Something unique that we were able to do with our game designers, we wanted to change between POVs. So in the beginning of the game, you're playing from the cat's POV, you're in a little carry box as it goes through into the living room, and it was a way that we can make a really intimate moment with your owner who's reaching out her hand. You can decide whether you bite or scratch her, or whether you back away or explore the house. We changed to third person when we were doing the more like exploring levels, because it made the player feel like they had more confidence as they were roaming around the space.
I was just going to say, I love how in the early stages of the game, you're literally, with that POV sequence, you're literally in the cat's world, and it creates this amazing kind of intimate moment between the player and the character. And I haven't seen that in any other game, just to be that low to the ground and have the human characters looking in on you as they would with a cat. It's incredible. It's really good.
And then the phone rings, and of course you run to the garage.
Was the fact that cats in real life, generally they're very good at platforming, particularly like vertical platformming, was that like taken into account and like incorporated into the design?
Yeah, jumping's really difficult to make it hit like different levels and different heights. So all our fences in the backyard are very high, so it means that no one can jump on top of them.
Yeah.
Because we're telling a narrative-driven adventure game, there were certain things that we lent into and things that we just parked, although the cat can technically climb every tree and do like very complex platforming. We just steered on the simpler side so we can get our story across.
I love the way that in your game you handle text captions, where you have the text in the world. How did that design process work for you, and what prompted you to go with that direction?
We were really inspired by Edith Finch. She had a lot of floating text appear, and because our protagonist was non-verbal, we needed a way to convey information. So if the cat walks past and there's a photograph of the perfect family, she might think, oh, well, I'll never belong here. And that text will appear and disappear, and as she goes around and sees different items in the home.
Well, as the game started as a red panda and chosen because of its status as endangered, I thought that making the whole overall thing of the game to be in conservation probably worked. And because of that, we had the mechanics based around that as well. So you can rescue other animals. That came from that. And then when you rescue them, you take them to your sanctuary, which it follows the whole thing of that. So every character in the game is based off an endangered animal. Like I think I said that already. For gameplay, climbing. Red pandas like to climb, so had to add that, which added a lot of variation in platforming. It also added a lot of bugs. It took a long time to get them out. Yeah.
Awesome. Do red pandas also roll up into a ball and zoom around real fast like hedgehogs? Do they do that?
Yeah, they do that. They also like to swing like Spider-Man. According to my game.
Okay, cool.
They also swim at great depths to the point where they're with whales. Yeah.
This is a very impressive red panda.
Yeah, it's very all of them do it.
With the deer, I wanted to keep the game with some sense of reality, but for me, I personally have a belief that all deer's antlers can glow. It was something that was a no-brainer. So I had always had that image in my head, and I knew that the game needed more than one button, so I put the glow on the button. And then I would sit around and try to think of what you would even do with that. And where I ended up with was kind of following certain visions in my head of if the deer's antlers can glow, then what does that do? And I figured you are being hunted by these wolves. And I had a very cliche kind of image of a villager peasant kind of holding off wolves with a torch, and I was like, well, that'd be sick if the deer did that at some point. So I started structuring the game design around reaching to that point and fitting that in naturally. And it ended up being this deer glowing antler was something that could affect the world, so the world was covered in this tar and oil, and you can burn that away, and it's almost like the combat loop of the game where it's quite clean simulator-esque. And that genuinely took a couple of years to feel right, to get that to look cool and feel really satisfying. And then the rest of the animal deer influence in design is more like you said, the word serene and graceful. So
that's really nice. I can see why you chose an deer. Everything you talk about. I just want to play this game. And you might have kind of already lent into this a little bit. Was it the animal that you picked first, or was it the game idea? Which was the inception that kind of led to the other?
I think for us the animal informs the game idea, because we always think character first, and then we sort of build our worlds around the character. So as soon as we had a pigeon and we thought, what's the least likely thing for a pigeon to be? Okay, they're in the mafia, and then immediately we start building the structure of the pigeon mafia. So we have, their hideout becomes the roost, and in the roost you can meet all of the kind of vendors in the game, which is Two Feather, who sells you pigeon upgrades and things like that, and you've got Claudine, who's a kind of, Real Housewives of Beverly Hills type. It's just amazing. So immediately all of these ideas just came from that central character, and then you just start filling out the world from that character.
Great. I grew up watching DreamWorks and Pixar, Disney, Spyro, Pokemon, so I wanted to tell like an animal first story. I also wanted a free jump button, which turns out is a lot more difficult to do than first expected. Yeah, we just wanted to tell a story about an owner and a pet and how they came together and the metaphor that we could play with while we were exploring that.
For me, it was the game idea. It was actually prototype, and I was tasked with designing a bunch of ideas based off it. So I made a bunch of concepts, and one of them was, for some reason, a red panda that could swing. And then we went with that. I guess, because the colour, like I said before, I used a lot of colour to do the concepting. And yeah, so it was like a 2D platform prototype. And then came everything afterwards that called the red panda.
Yeah. I mean, in a way, it has, like, you started with the game idea and then incorporated the animal, but then because of that animal, it's opened up all these other game ideas.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but it started as a prototype.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, I mean, it was the idea first, and then trying to design a game that could not exist with any other animal.
Yeah. And a lot of us here love animals, well, potentially all of us. And so there's got to be some pretty big benefits to picking an animal for your game. What do you think is the biggest benefit of choosing an animal protagonist over a human protagonist?
Well, humans aren't funny. From our perspective, I think that it's just much funnier when animals have human emotions or human foibles rather than watching a human do it. I mean, there are the obvious technical and practical challenges. If you want to pull off a human character in a game, it's probably going to be a lot more work technically. But yeah, I mean, I think animals allow you to, from our perspective at least, animals allow you to kind of satirize human mannerisms and emotions in a purer way. You get around that whole uncanny valley problem, and people see themselves in animals because they're kind of abstractions. It's a simplified way of representing human emotion, I think. If you were to do it with an actual human character, you'd start noticing all these subtle differences, and the standard to present those emotions is suddenly way higher and more complicated.
Yeah, we were able to tell a very human story through the eyes of Kat. We had an owner who didn't want to give up her independence, but who needed, to step back away from her pet. And then we had a pet that was desperate to be loved. And so we had a lot of collisions there, which was really interesting. I think one really fantastic thing was the layer of knowledge the pet had. So when you played as the pet, you have a level of innocence. And so you might not understand why your owner has had a fall and why she's been in the bedroom for 24 hours and she hasn't fed you. But as the player, you really understand what's going on. And so that duality there was really important
Yeah, basically, the theming, you can't get it with people. So your game theme will explore new alleys for people to understand. You can put human emotion to it, but because it's an animal, there's different stories you can tell. And also, when it comes from an artist's perspective, when you make a platformer, you often want to squash things down, but you want to exaggerate features, and it's just easier to do that with an animal without it looking weird and uncanny.
Yeah, the animals, everyone's animals here have such an immediate appeal. And with human characters and protagonists, I feel like a lot of gamers or potential audience carry their own baggage when they see a certain character design that might turn them off from playing the game. Whereas with an animal, people's different cultures have viewed specific animals in different ways, but everyone is offers a lot more goodwill and grace towards an animal, because animals can't really wrong you because that's their natural instinct. And then for my game specifically, I found that you don't need to save the world because you're an animal, so it's narratively enough that you just focus on survival, and then everything else is world building and gravy.
Yeah, the connection between the player and the animal is also more innocent, more I guess, natural as well.
Yeah, you sort of get the empathy for free if it's an animal protagonist.
Yeah.
And also, if you have a human protagonist in a game, there's always that one guy on Steam who'll just say, this is an asset swap or something.
Just the fact that players really can resonate and connect with like human stories told through an animal lens, like it is, it lends itself to each of your games. So I can definitely see the benefits. On the other hand, what's the biggest challenge? Like, what's the hardest thing about picking an animal for your game?
I think the hardest, well, there were two, I can think of a couple. The biggest challenge is just the character design of the pigeon, which we must have redesigned 2 or 3 times. And the technical things like how to rig it, how to set it up so that you can get the right amount of interesting, bouncy, silly emotion out of your character model without it veering too much into realism, at which point you're back to the whole human problem again. So, yeah, I mean, that was the challenge. It was also maintaining a kind of, for us, again, it's a comedy game. We have to maintain it so it's consistently funny. Because it's a roguelike, you're doing the same thing kind of over and over again to some extent. So we had to make sure that it was always funny to see the pigeon thrown into these kind of random situations. We also we had to actually build a pigeon gibberish engine so, to randomly generate as much pigeon gibberish as we needed for the cutscenes and things like that.
I'm just imagining like Animal Crossing style language, but like pigeon.
Probably less sophisticated than Animal Crossing. But it was probably done the same way. We just recorded a whole bunch of pigeon noises and found ways to randomly string it together.
How did you record the pigeon noises? Do you just like chuck a microphone in with a whole bunch of chips and just let them go?
Yeah, just a field recorder. Just like wander around pigeons and avoid the weird looks people are giving.
Did your team record any of that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh wow! So you just got like video.
Even the bratty kid in our game is actually my son. And I just chased him around the backyard with a field recorder again. So yeah, we try to make it as handmade as possible.
That's great.
On a lighter note, for us, we're trying to create lots of different cat sounds, and you can find pretty positive ones online, but like getting like really high pitched, those kind of like sort of sounds were quite difficult to find. And so Costa and I had the idea, we'll just record them ourselves. We'll just try to like record them ourselves and put them in a software to see if we could actually replicate. And then very shortly after, we realised there was no way.
Please don't hurt cats for the sake of art.
Yes.
Perform.
But on a more serious note, speaking really honestly, our biggest challenge was being in the shadow of the amazing cat game Stray. It's something that we'll always be compared to, and we'll always look up and think about this game that's done what you wanted to do, but just were able to capture the hearts and the imagination of so many players around the world. And so coming in this cat genre game, that knew that we had a lot of expectations we had to meet. And people had a lot of preconceived ideas about going into the game. So if you play Little Kitty Big City, you know it's going to be sandbox, it's going to be really fun. If you play Stray, you know there's going to be a lot of world building in there. When we played Copycat, people expected us to be quite light-hearted game, and so they were surprised, and one of the biggest challenges we had was to help people understand we were going for some deeper themes.
For what it's worth, having played both, I feel like Copycat does exist in its own space because you clearly speak with so much care and love for these animals, and Stray is just something completely different if you've ever played it. It's like this sci-fi war, and you've got a robot backpack.
Yeah.
Whereas Copycat is very much like...
It's very real.
It's very real.
Yeah.
It's very personal. It's a very cat game.
Yeah.
I feel like that is like one of the strongest points about your game. It's about how real it is.
Mm-hmm.
From, I guess, from an animation perspective, Illyri's tail is massive, Red Panda's tails are quite long. Just animating that was just a hazard. Like, trying to fit it into those sprite sheets was a nightmare. And then like every movement, you have to move the tail a lot. And also because it's a four-legged protagonist, which was, I wanted to keep it that way. I wanted to keep it more grounded to react. My character doesn't look very real, but I wanted to make it look more like a red panda.
It's gorgeous.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, like, having a quadruped main character is, in 3D adventure game, like that Way to the Woods is a very, very difficult technical challenge. You might notice in other games, like, you'll have a giant elephant that just slowly rotates in the center and pivots towards things. Like, games are, in general, built for bipeds. So, if you know anything about player controllers, there are all these capsules that sit upright, and a quadruped is very horizontal. So you'll have like your animals pivot strangely, and you'll have to invest a lot of time. Well, I had to invest a lot of time into like discovering what techniques we could use to make that look cool. And I still stand by Fallout 4 Peaked. They had like, if you ever look up the animation of the dog in that game, it's like a scientific thesis. Invented like new motion capture and prediction techniques to get the dogs to look really, really, really great. So for me, yeah, having to like even try to capture like a tenth of the magic that they did on other games for quadrupeds, without having it feel clunky, like a Red Dead horse versus like a Witcher horse, which pivots a bit strange, and it's really like a Skyrim horse as well. Like a lot of these horses kind of suck.
It's because the horse is attached to a biped, like a human. Is that one reason why the movement would be weird?
Yes, and also in real life it would be really hard to be a horse because you're very big. That's just kind of how that horse would move. So yeah, that's why it's so hard to capture. You might be better off trying to mimic a dog or a cat. You might think they're very similar, but their gaits are completely different. So.
Did the antlers get caught on anything? Was that difficult for like grey boxing?
That's very interesting. So I really wanted to have my antlers grow throughout the game as you ate different kinds of food, and then people would be like, "Oh, would the head sway?" And then you have to be like, "It's a lot of work." And so then I would try to experiment with different like physical animation techniques, like procedural. That for people who don't know, that's kind of like game beasts or something like that. A lot of that animation style is done live in the games and code, and so I would experiment with adding different weights and colliders so the deer's head would sway as you move around. Ended up using all that technical stuff for a slight visual gag puzzle where the deer needs a giant stick for some reason and you get it stuck in a gate. A lot of those like physical aspects ended up being derived from figuring out the challenge of a quadruped.
Did you have to watch a lot of deer footage?
Oh yeah.
This is going to be a big one for a couple of you, Copycat in particular. How do you really get across story and emotion without words or dialogue? Because there are words in most of your games, but obviously you don't have a cat that's just talking, because that would kind of make it less realistic. Yeah, how do you do it?
Yeah, I think we probably want to get to Copycat as quickly as possible on this one. They're all good family birds and a tribute to the community, and that's all I have to say.
I was thinking about what to share, but I thought being honest is the best way forward. So we moved countries, and which is why we had to rehome a couple of our pets growing up. And I was 11 and there was one cat we couldn't rehome, so we had to take it back to the RSPCA, and it was my parents' decision, and I carry a lot of guilt for that, like to think that we weren't able to hang on to her. And so in our narrative we have a character, the owner, who doesn't feel like she's fit enough to take care of the cat. We really want to explore that and then have the cat return to her in the end, to have a happy ending.
So that personal story affected your narrative.
met a red panda?
Yes.
Was it life-changing?
I actually working with this game has made me really appreciate red pandas over time. Our whole team, we've done charity events and stuff for them, and donated a lot for the conservation efforts. So, yeah.
Well, it's quite the opposite then. Like
Yeah.
the creation of your game has led to a personal experience.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
For me, I've never had a pet growing up, and I'm really bad at reading animals. Like, if a dog needs to pee and it's whining at me and like doing a little pee-pee dance, I don't know what it's saying to me. I find like that complete mysticism of an animal is probably affected the way I view the deer. They're like these aliens.
Yeah. Kind of godlike.
Until you met one.
Strange.
Yeah. Until you met one.
Until I met one, and I was like, I'm gonna repress that.
Yeah, they're just terrified of you. Strange sidetrack. I did a day placement at a deer farm when I was a vet student, and yeah, that's crazy. They're like the fences have to be like 4 meters high because they can jump over like stupidly high fences.
And deers, they just will. They won't think about it. They just will. That right? Yeah.
Yeah, like because they're a prey animal, like they're very skittish, a bit like a horse, because horses often like injure themselves just running into fences and stuff like that. So a bit like that with the deer.
It's all instinctual. It's not calculated like a cat or the pigeon mafia.
We should all have fall damage to our games. Just for fun.
My game is a 2D platformer with fall damage. Because there's
My pigeon
Contentious.
falls-
my pigeon no.
It just stays in the air the whole
It'll be
time.
the last fall I've ever had.
Stop adding real emotion to my game. They're turning it into copycat now.
We're gonna have to blitz through the last couple questions because I'm sure there's going to be people in the audience who might want to squeeze a couple questions in. We've got 5 minutes left. How have players reacted to your game because of your animal? They're more supportive, relatable, empathetic?
Look, our game's an animal mischief game. So as far as we're concerned, if kids like it, we're doing well.
Yeah.
And kids love it. We've had kids, when we were showing it at PAX, we've had kids who dragged their parents back time and time to sort of beat the boss, and it's incredibly rewarding for us, not the parents.
If anyone saw Rick's game last year, there was a huge crowd around it. It was so amazing to watch. For Copycat, we've been told we are an emotional brick to the face. I still haven't made up my mind whether that's positive or negative, but we definitely have people express their love for their pets. We've had people express that they've gone out and adopted an animal, and ultimately, that's really fulfilling as a developer.
Yeah, it's been really supportive, and it's just good raising awareness out there.
Yeah, most people seem to have been very supportive. There was one comment on a trailer that made me laugh where someone said, "Seems like an LGBT kind of game." You're right, though.
Kind of game.
Yeah, I'm like,
The broad genre of LGBT deer.
yeah, second strand type game ever made. I don't know.
And here's a strange one. You might actually be working on a sequel potentially with an animal at the moment. But if you could pick one new animal to make a game about, what would it be?
The goose. Oh, shit.
They beat you to the punch.
We may be working on a new game with an animal, so I'll just pass the copycat because I can't really talk about it.
No, talk about it. Not even a little hint.
Pufferfish.
Okay.
We're also taking the underwater route. We're going to do a killer whale or a blue whale. We haven't quite decided yet.
No way.
That's cool.
But we want to tell a story about imperfect families, and whales live in pods, whether they're 2 or 40. And we really want to explore that.
You said you both went underwater, it just gave me PTSD. It took us like 2 years to finish the water physics in our game. It was because the character has so much movement, The animation tree is insane. And when it goes into water, there's just so much that just happens. It's like.
Oh well, I guess that you just have to do something else then.
Well, both your creatures stay in the water, so that might make it easier. I'm not just choosing one animal. You can choose many animals, and you can possibly put them in your team.
I want to choose anything with fingers, because deer not having fingers makes things really hard to design.
Can you make a game about a raccoon? That's a request.
There's raccoons in the game, so.
Okay, well that wraps it up for. Thank you so much to our wonderful panelists. We have a massive amount of time. We've got 1 minute 30 for questions. Yeah, there we go.
How does that whole it's been having first stuff back to the game, and how does that make it more difficult? One of
Sperm?
Yeah, that made all that fur stuff.
Yes, actually, it makes it really flow. It's really fun. But also, when the character is tired, I also animated idols for that as well. And also when it's stuck in the snow, when it's stuck in the mud, I had to change that. In the water sense, it's like a contingency thing. I really would like to ask the programmer to add it so when Aloy jumps out of the water, it pops up. So yeah, animating fur, it's really fun.
We abstract our fur, but a side part of that is that we have ears and tails, and having that be able to flap and swish around is a really great thing because we can show character through just ears and tails that humans don't usually have. Usually.
We are unfortunately out of time. That's pretty much it. It has been a long weekend for many people, including the wonderful staff here at PAX. So I don't want to keep them over time. But if you have any burning questions, our generous panelists might be able to chat with you briefly. Thank you so much for coming along. It's been an amazing PAX. And again, another round of applause.
Thank you.